famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero, Dirk Pitt.
You're going to buy me the finest gourmet dinner in all Reykjavik, round up all the booze I can drink, and introduce me to a sensuous, buxom Icelandic nymphomaniac.
Iceberg. Episode 2. Wrestling Nipples.
I've got my beer, which is my fidget spinner.
Is it Star Wars beer? Oh, wow.
Darth Vader.
That's adorable. How's it taste?
Really good. It's my favorite one from the local brewery downtown.
Oh, good.
After all the watching videos I've done in the last week for vocal exercises and warm-ups and things, I didn't do any of that tonight.
You're very hard on yourself. Your voice sounds great. It's calm and authoritative.
Oh, so I'm bossy, you're saying?
Oh, God. When my in-laws first visited us when we left the city and moved out here, I did I barbecued a suckling pig.
Ooh.
I had to shave it first.
Ugh.
I didn't know that was something you have to do. You have to shave it, you have to scoop out the eyeballs. And I had a little Yorkie at the time, best friend. It's hard to scoop out the eyeballs because they're connected. So once you finally get them out, they fling. So he saw the first one. He was like, well, that's going to happen again. She's doing it. So he got both eyeballs. It was real gruesome. It was like taking apart a human being, I imagine. I made this suckling pig, and they decide, hey, you can just barbecue things anytime you want. We're going to move. They're telling people they have to move because their daughter-in-law did a pig. Now, to outsiders, that sounds like I cheated on their son. It takes a considerable amount of explanation beyond my daughter-in-law did a pig to make people understand. They moved from Brooklyn to about 30 seconds away from our house. I had the barbecue on a Sunday. They bought a house Monday morning.
Oh, geez.
That's
a good pig.
So far, I haven't regretted it. May I?
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cussler Hustlers. I am Nancy. This is the sound of my voice. That over there is Topper, and he will talk soon. That will be the sound of his voice. Go ahead.
I'm Topper. I'm over here.
Hi.
I'll arrange this so one of us is in the left ear, one of us is in the right ear.
Oh, cool.
But that means that for most listeners, they'll only hear one of us.
Oh.
I don't know about you. I only ever have one earphone in because I have a panic attack if both earbuds are in or both headphones are on. Then I can't hear what's going on around.
Safety. And this week we're starting with Chapter 2 or Chapter 1? Do you want to go back over Chapter 1?
We kind of sputtered out in the middle of Chapter 3 last time. And I suppose the extreme summary is Dirk Pitt and his best friend, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, are flying around the North Atlantic looking for an iceberg. And then they found it, and then they lost it, and then they found it again.
Yes.
Because the iceberg has a boat in it that may or may not be a Russian super spy ship. It's not.
You're spoiling it for everyone.
They explain that in the next paragraph.
Well, it was at the beginning of Chapter 3. They're on the wrong iceberg.
Yes.
And the Russians meet them there.
They were on the decoy iceberg, and a Russian sub showed up.
And in order to signal that he's no threat, Dirk Pitt shouts at them, and they salute back, knowing that he's marvelous and wonderful. He's a human raisin. He's made of leather, so he's very recognizable throughout the world. And they take off, and they travel right to the correct iceberg.
Means somebody found the mystery berg first. And that's where we are with Dirk and Bunsen Honeywell exploring it. And because we haven't had any action for a couple of pages, there is a whole extended sequence where the doctor slips and is about to fall off a cliff and die. And Dirk does this heroic flying leap to rescue him. And then they're fine.
It was written beautifully. It actually made me kind of tense.
It was.
Sliding on ice into the ocean is terrifying.
The writing is better in this book than the last one. It's more coherent. There's a sense of pacing. You know sort of what's happening in the immediate area.
And he's much better at tension building.
Although the pacing was a little odd because this whole thing just came out of nowhere because they've just met with the Russians. They've flown across the Atlantic again. They've landed on a different iceberg. They've talked about how spooky it is. And then just a few pages of him slipping and falling.
Well, that's how slip and falls happen, right? You don't plan them.
I guess. Yeah, he didn't keep 3 points of contact with the iceberg.
Gentlemen and ladies of the audience, this is a safety-minded co-host here. Remember, always keep 3 points of contact with your iceberg.
I've worked in civil and industrial engineering for most of my life, so I've been through so many safety presentations and seminars. I kind of want to get on Well, There's Your Problem just to talk about all the in-doc videos I've had to watch and how they've evolved over the years.
You have the bona fides. Just call them up. You could probably contact them via LinkedIn.
I've sent in a few safety thirds. I'm waiting to get that foot in the door of them reading a safety third and then just being like, hey, I got more if you want.
Did you? I know this is off topic, and I'm sorry, listeners. Did you hear the one about the guy who fell in the acid vat?
Probably. I've heard every episode, but, a bunch of them were years ago. So
That one was, wow.
Guy who fell in the acid vat really tells you everything you need to know about the story.
No, yeah, it wasn't the guy who fell in the vat of tuna. It was the vat of acid. Though you died from the tuna. It was in an autoclave and...
He got steamed, didn't he?
Yeah, poached, steamed,
Yeah.
like a Turin of blue-collar worker.
On the plus side, he died warm.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm from Canada. I'd go for that. Hey, I'm looking on the bright side.
Bright side, let's talk about this heck of a segue. You like things warm? Well, we've got a fire that happened on a boat.
I was trying to think of how to segue to the burned out boat, and we are on the same page there, quite literally. All right. So they find the tunnel that leads into the boat that's frozen in the ice.
And it is explained that the tunnel was hidden. Well, he rescues Honeywell, or Honeybuddy, or whatever his name is, gets him back up onto the iceberg through, he's got really strong shoes. And he dug into the ice, and he had the other man climb on top of him, and they did, heroics with the jacket, yada yada. They're both fine. Exhausted. Dirk is showing off, well, Mr. Scientist, I found this beveled hatch. Nobody would have seen it except that somebody was lazy and carved out a handle. His omniscience is beyond. Who could be friends with this guy?
He is on an iceberg made of snow and ice that is a half-mile across, and he found the hand-shaped scoop that looked different than the other ones.
Yes, a divot in the ice. On the pockmarked ice.
Damn, he's good.
Oh, he's got to be insufferable.
Because they find the tunnel that runs along the side of the boat until it sort of ends up, I guess, near an entryway.
Near an entryway alongside the burnt-out wooden door of the yacht. Oh, that's a spoiler. It's a yacht. It's a burnt yacht.
It's not a Russian super spy ship. It is a luxury yacht, but it is still a luxury yacht equipped with state-of-the-art equipment, and we get into a lot of exposition. Like, Chapter 4 is all exposition. So I guess we'll just sort of slide smoothly off this cliff and into the North Atlantic of exposition.
They're discussing things, and they find someone who is sitting at the controls, and he's a burnt-out husk. Cremated alive, it looks like. Dr. Honeywell goes and retches in a corner. Then they've determined, oh God, is it 15 people on board?
My notes say the ship had 15 people originally. They first find the radio operator, who must be Svendborg, because Dr. Honeywell has a list. Because they haven't revealed to the audience yet sort of what the boat is and who's on board. We're getting to that.
Yes, but the guy, Gustafsson Svensson.
They're letting out the clues bit by bit. And this part is really well written, because they are dropping hints, and you're trying to figure out, okay, so Svendborg, that's not Russian. Who could this be? What's up with this boat?
Yes, they basically named the radio operator the Scandinavian equivalent of Bodie McBoatface.
Svendborg.
Gus Svendborg. Sounds like a wonderful sandwich.
Hell, that's almost my last name. I can't complain too much.
There's always room for complaining.
Right away, Pitt realizes, first, he has one of his bipolar fantasies about what it must be like to die by fire, and he really goes into detail about how much it would hurt and what he would do in case he was ever killed by fire. And that's when he realizes that something is wrong with this scene. Because why didn't the man try to escape? Why did he curl up into a ball? And we get more of Dirk's gut knowledge, where he knows what he knows what happens on the next page before we do.
Like I said, this guy cannot be around other human beings. He's just made to get punched in the head. How somebody this arrogant, even if they're right, you can be right and still an asshole. Somebody famous said that. Not sure who. Maybe it was Lincoln, Marilyn Monroe, both of them.
I think it was Captain Picard.
Maybe Benjamin Franklin.
Ah,
Oh, I would love to hear Captain Picard say, "You're an asshole. You're right, but you're still an asshole." That would be excellent. I want to rewind for just a scooch. Before Dirk leaves the Catawba, he has a breakfast. He has a meal there that he says, "Oh, wow, it's a $5 meal." I'm going back to this.
Oh, yeah.
Because inflation is in the news everywhere.
A $5 meal at any hotel in America or at the Hilton or something. It did stand out oddly.
Yes. So $5 is in 1970 versus 2023. We're in May 2023. $5 then is the equivalent of $39.09 now. Oh, so the food on that boat is fantastic.
Hey.
So while they're taking attendance for the dead, the crematory count, going from 1 to 1 to 1 to make sure all hands are charred, the Captain Koski boards the vessel after they find the last remaining crematory cretin.
Yeah, we get the final bit of exposition where we find out what this boat is and who was on it. And the boat is called the Lax, and it was owned by a former student of Dr. Honeywell, who is a brilliant scientist, an adventurer, the 10th richest man in the world. And it turns out that it was an Icelandic mining magnate named Christian Fury.
Yes, who?
It's a sick name.
Fury or Fry?
Fury.
Christian Fury. Oof.
According to the audiobook, it's Fury.
Oh, okay.
And they find Fury because they find a torched corpse that has rings on every finger, including incredibly detailed examination of all these rings. One of them is lapis, and one of them is obsidian, and they're all the different Norse gods. So they're really driving it home that that's absolutely who this corpse must be, which, if you've ever watched a spy or adventure novel, guarantees that's not who this corpse must be.
Yes, they are sitting.
But right when they find that body, that's when there's a flashlight from above, and it's Koski, and he's pissed.
Oh, he's so pissed. He's been lied to. He's been used. He feels dirty.
And now we're in chapter 4, which is the Dirk Pit parlor scene, where they sit around. I don't know if they drink and smoke, but it's just the three characters sitting around, and they recount like 10 years of history.
Yes, as you do. But I'm going to digress. I'm sure you're shocked. I've been rewatching Columbo.
Oh.
For context. And it is a magnificent time travel vehicle. Everyone was drinking and smoking. That goes without saying.
Very Mad Men.
It's just setting the scene. People are taking one for the road. People are taking shots. There's babies in NICUs, if they had those back then, that are smoking tobacco. There's like pediatric tobacco being rolled. There was so much smoking.
That's why I had emphysema as a kid.
Okay. Oh, I'm happy you've overcome your emphysema. It's a stylish iron lung. Very stylish. Is that Armani?
No, I had lung problems all as a kid. I had allergies, I had croup, I had bronchitis. I had one of those humidifiers that was basically the size of a small fridge that had to be in my room. I spent my 4th birthday in an oxygen tent in the hospital. Like, I was kind of fucked up as a kid.
Oh.
Everything that you could have wrong with your lungs, I had wrong with me.
Was it, did your parents smoke?
My mom did. She quit at one point. Like, I almost don't remember ever seeing her smoke. So she quit when I was really young.
Okay. So it wasn't that. It was just you.
Every year I would have every cough, every cold. I was allergic to everything. I had chicken pox 4 times, which you're not supposed to have happen. Like, I was really messed up as a kid. And then I'm just like, from the age of 8 on, never got sick, never broke a bone, kind of indestructible. Tried to make that work for me.
Yeah, work it. Go ahead. I'm glad your lungs are better now.
I know they had NICUs. I know they had oxygen tents. I know there was no smoking in the hospitals because I was in the hospital a lot. Well, that was the early 80s. Maybe the 70s were a little different.
70s were a little different. because my younger sister was born in the 80s. I was there. They didn't have sonograms. That wasn't around yet. They didn't know if my parents didn't know if they were having a boy or a girl. So technology has greatly changed. But there was smoking in the hospital when she was born. I remember my dad smoking. And there was still smoking on planes. Will make your kid a gay frog.
Well, I know what soundbite I have to drop in there.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Crap.
I do remember my mom smoking. I'm sure I'll cut this, but I just bounced around a memory. I would be given $5 and I would go to the hub and buy a pack of Viscount 100s for my mom.
Really?
I would go to the store and buy her smokes. I remember that. And the guy at the hub knew me.
Well, I was able to do that for my parents up until around 6, and they passed a law because my mom would send me. I didn't know how to really count money.
Yeah.
So she would send she'd wrap it up in paper with Scotch tape.
I was just given a 5.
Oh, I would just give it. She would be exact change for whatever, and then I'd get the cigarettes and bring them back home. But then they passed a law that you couldn't sell to underage kids, and she would try and write a note and be like, obviously my 6-year-old isn't smoking. The law doesn't care that your 6-year-old has a good reason for buying cigarettes.
My mommy needs.
Oh God, that's so great. She did need.
It was funny until you said that. All right. Back in chapter 4, who wants to lead off on the parlor scene?
I will go back. I just felt it was a man feeling he was out of the loop. Koski was like, you used me.
Yeah.
You didn't even leave money on the nightstand, you assholes. And he's...
While Dirk and Honeydew were off gallivanting around, Koski did more digging and found out that they'd lied. They'd lied to him and blown smoke up his ass. Commandeered his boat and sailed it without permission and all sorts of stuff. But then he finally gets let in on the real secrets and the real mystery.
Yes.
Long story short, the Lax left Reykjavik in Iceland, headed for Washington, D.C., with a boat full of engineers and a meeting with the American Defense Department. And we still don't know what that's about yet, but the boat disappeared with all hands and was never seen again.
Was it here that they talked about the cargo, that the zirconium?
Yeah, they mentioned that there was some sort of device because Fury was a mining magnate and Pitt is trying to figure out what could possibly be so important to the Defense Department for a mining magnate. Dirk thinks that it's zirconium, which is an absolutely essential part of shielding for nuclear reactors. And if Fury knows where there's a huge deposit of zirconium, then every nuclear power on the planet would want him and want that knowledge.
And this Fry guy, the guy who's fried, whose name is Fury, whose name was Fury, dun dun dun, was a diamond magnet. He made his money from diving off of Africa.
South African diamonds.
And he was a real do-gooder, goody two-shoes for a miner. He made a fortune, then turned over his company to the locals to take over and realize the immense wealth the business generated. But the diamond guy is also on a hunt for zirconia. The
locals are also referred to as the Blacks a couple times.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Also, this great line from Koski in the middle of him yelling at them for information and for lying to him was, "You're intelligent people, but you're acting like a couple of mongoloids."
Oh my God, I forgot. Oh my God.
It's a word you just don't see anymore, you know?
You're right. I can't believe it went right out of my head. The origin of that is, dear listeners, they're saying that a mongoloid is not a person from Mongolia. That's not what they're using the term for. It's meant to mean somebody who has Downs.
Yeah.
Or something similar at the time.
I didn't know what it meant as a kid because I kept picturing somebody from Mongolia. I kept picturing somebody with like Asian, Russian, that sort of look. I was very into Genghis Khan as a kid, and it was a shock to have it explained to me. That's not nice.
No, it's not nice at all.
That's terrible.
For you for learning about other people during school. I went to a Catholic school. They told us about Ireland, Italy, because that's where the Pope is, the U.S., George Washington cut down a cherry tree. You could tell no lies. That was about it for history. Asia, you don't need to know about that. You're going to be a teacher, a wife, or a nun.
That's all I was obsessed with learning about when I was a kid was anything not in North America. So I had books on samurai culture and the Meiji Restoration. I had books on the Mongol hordes. I had books on Greek and Roman mythology. Egyptian mythology. That was all the coolest stuff.
That is cool stuff. Usually people,
We learned about like World War One, or learned about, well, I guess Louis Riel had some cool stuff. That's Canadian history.
oh,
But mostly just anything super far away. That was the neat stuff.
grass is greener, huh?
Yeah. Dirk, oh yeah, it is a parlor scene because I do have the note here that he is smoking while giving this part of the speech. While everybody, I should point out, they're standing around the corpse of Christian Fury during this whole thing.
I thought it was fry as I read it. So I thought Christian fry, like a fish fry. So I'm still disappointed. I'm going to be salty about that.
It's Furie in the text, isn't it?
I'm reading it as Fyrie.
Fury. Yeah, maybe.
Irie.
In the audiobook, it's Fury.
Okay.
Fury. Dirk explains what happened, and he does this in like perfect Sherlock vision, where he wonders aloud, how could every inch of the boat burn when the boat has a sprinkler system, the most expensive luxury yacht in the world? How did the radio operator die at his seat without sending an alert? There's only one solution. Somebody with a flamethrower went room to room killing everybody after they'd all been drugged.
And he even knows the drug.
Some drugs were slipped into the water or the food. Oh yeah. I didn't write that down, but it was probably like sodium pentothal or something.
Yeah, something sciencey sounding. Knocks everybody out at the same time. Meanwhile, I can give one kid Benadryl. They're down for a week. I give another kid Benadryl. They're bouncing off the walls. It's really hard to poison people. Put them to sleep. I've tried.
They'll notice.
Yes, unless you're at like a Russian wedding or something where you're actively poisoning yourself, people will notice.
That's why my guess was Rohypnol. Everyone just got a little slowed down, and you have to be drugged with something that messes with your faculties enough that you don't realize you've been drugged. But this is the science fiction fantasy book, so I'm sure they've got something that'll work.
Sure. Unobtainium number 2. And this was in a time before you can buy flamethrowers on Amazon. So this was, really hard to accomplish. The drugging, the timing. I mean, if you've ever tried to make a dinner and a side at the same time, timing is crucial when you're cooking. And he's got all these people out cold and fried with a flamethrower.
Yeah, that does raise the next mystery. So I do like how in this book, they'll raise a mystery and they'll solve it, but they will then raise another mystery. So again, we're already better than the Mediterranean Caper, where they raise a mystery, solve it, and then sort of spin their wheels for a few chapters.
Yes.
Because now the mystery is America wanted this secret because the Lax was meeting with the Defense Department. Russia wanted the secret, which is why they were hunting for the boat. But now some mystery third party has this mystery secret. We don't know.
But we do know a sexy broad is coming soon.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because Christian Kebab, as we now know him, was alone in this world.
Oh, yes.
Except for his twin sister, who doesn't care about money and who was off being a do-gooder someplace.
She was a missionary in Papua New Guinea.
Ish. Missionaries.
It wasn't a religious thing.
White savior complex.
I learned, like, entirely unrelated to this in the last week. I learned why Papua New Guinea has a border in the middle of the island that's almost completely vertical.
And why is that?
Because half of it was a German colony until very recently. Well, World War II recently, but still. So there's a German side to the island with German names and German towns.
Okay.
I have to do more research on that. I think that was a byline on an episode of The Dollop, and just everything ground to a halt, and they were like, "What? Really?" You're like, "Yes, all those imperialist countries have colonies fucking everywhere."
Oh yeah, it was.
And you basically can't get as far from Germany as Papua New Guinea, but that's where they had to set up shop.
It was all manner of atrocities. Wasn't there French Guinea?
Yeah.
The Papillon?
Yeah, because Papua New Guinea is one side with Port Moresby, and the other side is, I don't know. There's so much I don't know about so much of the world.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I'll learn one tiny fact that will derail me and break all this information I thought I had and thought I knew.
Are you kidding? I've learned so much about amphibians because I saw one gif of turtles having sex, and I was like, "That's adorable."
Making the squeaky noise.
The door of a huffing. It was so cute. Thank you for the ADHD roundup. Now back to the story.
Anybody who listens to our podcast is either doing it because of that or they've just gotten used to it by now.
Absolutely. So we know a nice broad who's very virtuous, who doesn't care about money, is in the wings.
She's on her way. But by this point in Mediterranean Caper, we already knew who the villain was. We had already met Bruno Von Till, and he'd already tried to kill Dirk. At this point, we have no idea who the villain is.
No, and we have this cool ship that's encased in ice, and they actually gave a plausible theory how the ship was on fire, and it was next to an iceberg, and that's how it melted in, like a poker being submerged into an iceberg.
Yeah, because if the boat basically got incinerated, it would take days to cool off, and if the wind was coming from one side, it would just smush it in.
Is that the scientific term? You were an engineer.
Smush. It's scientific smushing. Yes.
Like smushing gravitas? Monumental smush.
And I think we'll wrap it up with chapter 5 tonight, which is a fairly short chapter, but
sad.
Actually a very action-packed chapter. I also enjoyed this part. So Dirk and Dr. Honeydew are flying along. They're heading for Iceland, which is the next stop of their investigation. And this is where they share their theories about how zirconium was the secret that the Lax was carrying.
Yes, and I think it's Honeywell. I think you've been given too many lists.
No.
Or you really like mullets.
It is absolutely Honeywell, but I said Honeydew once and now I can't stop.
It's Honeydew, fine. We'll change it. It's better. It works. According to my deep research from watching Columbo this week, we have to imagine everyone in corduroy and velour. Even if it's scuba gear, corduroy and velour, and things are carpeted. Everything, everywhere you go is carpeted. Everyone is smoking. Everyone is drunk.
I am now imagining a shag-carpeted helicopter, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Green shag carpeting in this helicopter. They're both smoking their asses off. Cigars in one hand, cigarettes in the other.
Which is why it's so shocking when the cockpit
erupts.
When the window explodes, Dr. Honeywell is shot and Dirk is flying blind in 200-mile-an-hour North Atlantic Arctic winds, and his face is freezing. And he realized that there's like a black private jet, and I kept thinking it was like a fighter jet, but no, it's just like a Gulfstream. It's a private jet, painted all black with machine guns on it, is strafing the helicopter.
Can you do that?
Not technically, unless you're Eric Prince.
Oh, well.
All of our fans who keep up with the
Behind
news.
the Bastards crossover.
Yeah.
Okay, quick aside. He's the brother of Betsy DeVos, who was the education secretary for the U.S. They're Christian nationalists, white supremacists, and warmongers. Now, back to the show.
Eric Prince has sold armies, navies, and air forces to, I guess, the highest bidder in various countries around the world.
And then you wonder who would buy?
Including shuffling armed private jets with different countries of registry around Europe, trying to dodge that being a war crime. Go check out Behind the Bastards, a better podcast.
Right now, Vince McMahon has a 6-part Behind the Bastards. Eric Prince had a 2-parter. Jesus Christ.
I think that was just because I think Robert has earned some fun episodes, you know, and he started reading about the history of wrestling, and he fell down a rabbit hole, and there's just a million wrestling stories to tell.
I agree. It does sound like an endless beach of sand. Ooh, my co-host ran away. Go with those curtains. Doug has not moved.
I just realized that thanks to the latest episodes of Behind the Bastards with the history of Vince McMahon and the WWE, I had to break out my Ultimate Warrior 7-Eleven cup.
Oh my God. Who is that? Ultimate Warrior?
That's the Ultimate Warrior.
Wow, that's a very even tan. And he had great teeth.
He was my favorite when I was a kid, even though
his nipples look alarming.
He's completely insane. Insane to the point where he legally changed his name to Ultimate Warrior, and he is a college professor, and he was Professor Warrior for the last years of his life.
Okay, I want to take this moment. You are a stranger to me. Well, now we know each other a bit, but you live thousands of miles away. I live thousands of miles away from you. That's how that works.
What a coincidence.
We have the podcast crossover of identical twins.
We really do. I think that's why we hit it off, because I remember way at the beginning, before we even started, our very first episode, I can't remember the exact question you asked, but you were trying to feel out, like, where was I politically on the spectrum?
Oh, yeah, I asked you if you were right-wing nut.
Yeah, and I think I responded with something. One of my answers was about Alice from Well, There's Your Problem,
Yeah, I know. I was fine.
related podcast, and we were like, oh, good, we're friends now.
Yes, it was fun. Like, oh, he's all the way in my cat. It's great.
The left-wing nut job.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent.
But so strange.
Anyways, wrestling nipples aside, we're back in the North Atlantic.
Wrestling Nipples has to be the name of this podcast.
Ah,
You've won it. You won the podcast.
it doesn't even have anything to do with the chapter.
It inspires intrigue.
Oh,
Wrestling
God,
Nipples.
it does, doesn't it?
And you'll have to explain that to your wife, because I want no trouble.
Let me just highlight that so I don't lose it. There. So Dirk is now recreating the end of, I believe, Rambo 3, where he is in a helicopter.
This would
And-
mean Rambo 3 was copied from Clive,
Yep, absolutely. Just move
Clive's-
this to
a monster hero.
move this to Vietnam, and it's basically the same. No, wait. No, Rambo 2 was Vietnam. Rambo 3 was Afghanistan. So it
Which
would
one
have
had
been
Mr. T?
It would have been the end of Rambo 2. None of the Rambos had Mr. T. I believe you're thinking of Rocky 3.
Oh, I haven't seen any of them. I was just throwing Mr. T out there. Just to get his name out there.
Mr. T as Clubber Lang. Rocky 3. Great movie.
You are an encyclopedia of pop history. Wow.
Some of it.
And you studied. How did you have time? That sounds like such a heterosexual male thing to do. You would have to pay me enormous sums of money to sit down and watch these Rocky movies.
The Rockies are pretty good. Rocky 1, genuinely a great movie. Rocky 2,
Isn't-
mostly good. Rocky
isn't
3,
Isn't he like trying his wife to be sort of like mentally diminished? Isn't
no.
oh
She incredibly shy, and if anything, she is emotionally abused by her brother.
oh I thought, because I remember seeing parts of it as a kid and I remember thinking, oh, she's a dum dum and her brother's trying to sell her. But
No, she is just incredibly mousy after a lifetime of being shouted at by men. Like, that's
Oh.
really the vibe you get. Like, if she raises her voice, she's going to get her ass kicked, is kind of the vibe you get from her, which is great when she starts screaming and throwing shit later in the movie and stands up for herself and goes off with Rocky. Anyway, Rocky 1, great movie.
you heard it here first, people. Rocky 1, good movie.
So much better than people give it credit for. Like, full of
Sylvester,
great actors, full of great lines, amazing history behind the movie. Sylvester Stallone, like, mortgaged everything he owned to make this movie, make this script in Hollywood, sold his dog, and bought it back a year later when the movie was a hit.
for 20 grand, I believe. And now he's a very, very right wing MAGA hat guy.
Is he? I
Yeah,
mean,
he's
I'm
very
not surprised. Absolutely not surprised. But yeah, probably.
But he had fantastic surgery and looks not a day over 112. But his new movie is great.
Anyways, back to the North Atlantic.
Oh, and Honeybun. Mr. Honeybun. Dr. Honeybun.
He got shot, so he's out for most of this chapter. Dirk is juking and jiving. He doesn't have Al here to take pot shots out the side.
He had no meatballs are rolling out of this helicopter at all.
Nope. He's boned and he knows it. Victory was impossible, but there is a chance for a tie score, which is
Yes.
the manliest thing that you can do. You know, stand your ground, go down swinging, take the other guy with you. So Pitt slows the helicopter and plays dead, which is exactly what Rambo does. Seriously, watch the end of Rambo 2. It's so dumb the way Rambo 2 does it. But this seems cooler. So he slows down, he plays dead. The jet swings by for one more strafing run, and then he jacks the helicopter up, and the rotors chop through the wing, and the airplane and the helicopter crash.
Which, for a tactic, if you have to go down fighting and you get to take the other person out, I consider that a win. That is a sound strategy.
And they were almost at Iceland, because just before they were being strafed, they could see the black sand beaches, which I've been on. Very cool.
Did you swim?
No, we were there in the fall. It was very cold. We walked on the
It's
beaches,
probably very cold in the summer, too.
and we spent a lot of time in hot springs.
Oh, and a bunch of Ricky Stans, the little children He's found injured.
We're not there
with
yet.
His, oh,
But yeah, basically, he grabs Honeywell and he drags him the last couple hundred yards to the beach, drags him up on the shore.
heroically, everything hurts. He's trying to keep this guy alive, dragging him to safety.
They're found by children. I like to imagine the kids just like standing there with sticks, just poking them. And
yes,
then
they fell unconscious. Sleep overcame Pitt, as it always does, against his will while he's injured. This is the running theme for Dirk. He never gets to just go to sleep. This man has never seen a set of sheets. He always just passes out.
well, he does in between books, because don't forget, between book 1 and book
yes,
2,
the nymphomaniac.
he was on a rooftop in California with a redheaded nymphomaniac.
Oh, well, that would make you tired.
Bed sheets ahoy. But now he's in Iceland, and Dr. Honeywell sits up, says, "God save thee," and dies.
Yes. No gurgling, just very neat last words.
It's good to have neat last words, especially when they're cryptic.
How do you know when to stop? How do you know when to stop? Like, I want these to be my last words. Oh, I didn't say that loud. Like, if you want these to be your last words, when do you know you're going to die? And then
That was a formative scene for me growing up. Have you ever seen the movie Fist of the North Star?
no, but I will write that down. This of the North Star sounds enigmatic.
I was going to say, I wouldn't. It might not.
And
One of the more violent animes ever made. Anyway, one of the main characters, I guess one of the B characters, dies towards the end, and his last words go on for about 3 minutes.
then you
And
can
just
get
when
up
you
and
think-
seek help.
And just when you think he's done, he like turns to another character and goes, "And you have to save the other people." And coughs up blood. "And you don't fight your brother." And like he just keeps going. And it's so hard not to burst out laughing during this, the most dramatic scene before the final ass whooping begins. It's so funny.
Oh, that sounds great. But Honey Bun doesn't gurgle, doesn't moan, doesn't cry, doesn't ask for his mom, just says, "Save thee," cryptically. He dies in style.
I mean, that
And
was
that's the
silent.
end of chapter 5.
The end of chapter 5. And that, I believe, is where we'll end tonight, because chapter 6 is chock full of intrigue.
We don't know what's coming. We shan't tell anyone. But I do encourage you.
Someone dies.
Oh. They're probably very corduroy.
There's a lot of killing in this book. There's almost no killing in the Mediterranean caper. But this book racks up a body count by the end.
Oh, and I want to tell you an unrelated story. Sort of related to cremations. You know how everybody was right to a crisp? My sister used to work for a dentist who was also an undertaker, which are not
All town, huh?
mutually exclusive. You can do both. Except he was known as Dr. Doom when he was arrested. Because he was in the late 90s, he was a bone merchant, and he would sell the irises and the bones of the deceased. He was like early in the bone grafting trade, and he had the supply coming in, and he realized that it was product to move.
Sure.
Consents willy-nilly. They're already dead, and he would just sell the hearts. And my sister had no idea. She was just his receptionist at the dentist office. And then one day the police come in, take all the files, and know our job.
Oof.
Yeah, that's how people were cremated, minus the factory parts.
They don't need all their bones to be
You
cremated.
really don't need all your bones, but if you die of bone cancer, you're hoping your bones don't get sold to other people.
Well, I mean, I don't want my bones sold to other people, but at the same time, if my bones go towards bone grafts or for people who need them, that's kind of cool.
That I'm totally cool with, but he got arrested, and my coworker got arrested for keeping his mother chained to a radiator.
Whoa.
And it happened like within the same month. So my youngest sister, who hadn't had a job yet, she was like, "Is this what the workforce is?" 1998 was a wild year.
Apparently. We just got done with the Satanic Panic, and then this happened.
This satanic panic never ended.
Yeah, it's back now.
My mother believed in that lock, stock, and barrel.
I'm glad mine didn't. I played a lot of D&D in the 90s.
Good for you. You have the worst burn the books. I had I was big into Stephen King as like a 5th and 6th grader,
Yeah.
and then I learned about banned books, so I started reading like Catcher in the Rye and the Thornbirds at Catholic school to make sure it was rebelling. So if you don't know what the Thornbirds are, it's really anti-Catholic. It's not great for how priests look. It's better than how they look now, but it's not great. In retrospect, at the time, a priest winds up dating like a 13-year-old. They fall in love.
My dad had that miniseries on VHS, and he watched it a lot and tried to get me to watch it. And I was like, this is so boring. Because I was a little kid for the Thornbirds. I just zoned out completely because there was so much talking.
What I would give for a movie with talking. I want more talking in movies. My husband and I saw Renfield. It was great, but it wasn't a sophisticated masterpiece of dialect.
Well, it was Nicolas Cage.
And it was awesome. It was better than Face Off. It was fantastic.
Wow.
I know.
That's
and
a high bar.
He opted Face Off. Like off. He treated it.
I love Face Off.
I love Face Off too. Oh, and I've rustled a ton of papers because I broke my fidget spinner, and I am sorry. I'm very sorry.
No, that's fine. I didn't hear much wrestling. All right.
Yeah, I understand why you didn't have time for movies. You had a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, which probably started off as a 0-year-old and a 2-year-old. What spacing? You never slept.
No,
you
not really.
Jeez.
Yeah, we had the one kid for a while when we were like dead broke. And basically the second I had a reliable job, we immediately had 2 more kids. Woo!
Congratulations. You need something to spend your money. I don't know about you, but my kids love to just spend money like it falls around them, like it's free.
Yeah. It was easy for so long because all they wanted was art supplies. So last year culminated in our kids each getting pretty expensive drawing tablets to really take their art to the next level. And they've really done amazing stuff with that. So we paid for the tablets, we paid for the subscriptions to Clip Studio Paint and Ibis Paint and whatever other paint programs they're using right now, like animation software. It's all very cool.
That is really cool. And your daughter's art piece that you sent me was fantastic.
Yeah. But now they want a new desktop computer for all the new games because now they're buying Steam games and they want this, they want that. One of them is spending so much money on clothes and just insisting she'll pay us back. And the other kid got into roller derby. And
who's into roller derby?
It was just paper and crayons for so long, and now there's
Well, I loved the pre-video games. My son was just like these $2 little Matchbox cars all day long, and then video games. And my daughter's like, he thinks nothing of going to Dunkin' Donuts for a $7 cup of coffee, and she wanted She left town for 3 days. I gave her $100, and she ran out of money the first day. She's like, money goes really fast.
I know.
Yeah, if you spend it on nothing, $7 coffee. I'd bite my tongue off before I paid $7 for coffee.
Okay. I think we've gone on enough tangents for one evening.
I think maybe we should just retitle the show Tangents.
I might have to include a warning or a disclaimer that there's very little Dirk Pitt in these podcasts.
Well, I'm having fun.
Oh God, me too. That's what this is all about. I don't plan to actually make a penny off of this. If I do, neat. If not, I'm just having fun. I'm creating, I'm learning, I'm getting better at stuff.
Yes, we both are. We're both learning to speak better because it's really hard for me not to trip over my words or have vocal fry. You said you have a stutter. Haven't heard it once. So you're doing awesome.
Been very good tonight. Beer helping.
Oh. Beer is the first wonder drug, right? The first patch of water that was contaminated by wheat and fermented must have seemed like a magical pit to the caveman.
This stuff is the best. I'm going to make a religion about this.
And here we are. Podcasting.
Here we are.
Humanity took some turns, but we got here. I'm gonna
Alcohol had one eventual goal. Podcast.
This has been Cussler Hustlers. Your hosts have been Topper and Nancy. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Cussler Hustlers.